I miss school a lot, especially the parts which took place outside of the classroom. I used to love going on school trips. They were a lot of fun. I'm sure you've been on school trips and excursions too. And amusement parks? Aren't they out of the world? So you go on a school trip to an amusement park that has opened up in your city quite recently with all exciting rides. Super Splash, Zip Zap Zoop, Striking Car, Dragon Coaster Round, Water Merry-Go-Round, and an exotic and mouth-watering food court. Your dad gives you a crisp 2000 rupee note to spend on the trip. You had a great time when you come back. You meet your dad, you tell him how amazing the trip was, and then the classic questions come. What happened to the money I gave you? Where did you spend it? Is any of it left? Can you give me an account of it? You pause and you're like, Dad, I'm a little tired with the trip. Can I tell you all of that in the morning? Now you go to your room a little petrified that if you can't recall where you spent your money, your dad might think you're not responsible enough and he won't let you go on trips in future. But you hold on your nerves. You take a notepad and try recalling how you spent your money. You scribble on your notepad thinking out loud. I spent 300 on a burger. Then I bought chips for some 200 bucks. I paid 1200 as entry fee. So 300 plus 200, 500 plus 1200, 1700. But where did I spend the rest of the money? I had cola, but I didn't pay for it because it was my friend's treat. And the ride to the amusement park was in the school bus, so I obviously didn't pay for it. So where did I spend the rest of the money? How do I recall? Oh, I remember. I spent 250 rupees on a red sauce pasta. And I should have 50 rupees left in my wallet. Let me check. Yes, I do have a 50 rupee note left in my wallet. Thank God. You have a sigh of relief and you go to sleep. And next morning, you take your notepad and show it to your dad and give him back the 50 rupee note. Now think of the question your dad asked. Give me an account of the money spent. So what do you mean by an account? If you look up the word account in the dictionary, it would mean a report or a description of events. Then what is accounting? Well, accounting is a process by which a report of events is created. But is that all it is? Is there more? Maybe something more formal? Or can we define it in a better way? Yes, we can. Accounting is defined as a process of identifying, measuring, recording, and communicating the required information relating to economic events to the interested users to help them make decisions. What is this long definition all about? Don't get puzzled. Let's break this long definition into pieces and relate it with the example we just discussed. The first part states that it is a process of identifying, measuring, recording, and communicating. When your dad asked for an account, you sat and identified where you spent your money, you measured it in rupees, you recorded it in the notepad, and finally communicated it to your dad. The second part mentions required information of economic events. In the example, what do you think was the required information? Your dad asked you how the money was spent. So that's the required information. And then what do you mean by economic events? Well, economic events are the events which are measurable in terms of money. Money spent on burger, chips, entry fee, pasta are all economic events. You saw a few events other than the ones which you wrote down in your notepad. Like you got a free ride to the fantasy park on your school bus and your friend treated you with cola. But you didn't write them on the notepad. Why? Well, it's simple because you didn't spend money on them. So all such events which you didn't spend money on are called non-economic events. Okay, back to our definition now. The third and the final part talks about interested users and how they use accounting to make decisions. Now tell me, who was the interested user in your example? Of course, your dad. His money, you spend it, he needs to know where. So what decisions will your dad make after looking at the account? Well, he would decide whether you were responsible or not in spending money and whether he should let you go on trips in the future. Whoa, is accounting so simple? Yes, it is. In the example we discussed, all you needed to do was add money you got and deduct money you spent. Accounting is all about keeping a track of money earned and money spent and making a lot of decisions around it. So if you like money, which I'm sure you do, you like accounting as well. Moving ahead, let's take another example now. And this time, we'll take one which involves doing business. Do you like wearing denims? Of course you do. They're so comfortable. Now let me take you to a denim store. The denim store started business 2 months ago with the denim store owner putting his own money and borrowing some from his friends. The store has around 100 people coming every day trying and buying different kinds of denims. Colored, vintage, marble, reverse, and so on. The quality of denims is amazing and they are very well priced. The denim store owner is a humble man and he talks to his customers politely. He's so kind that if customers request him to pay later, he readily agrees to it. Probably that is why so many customers come in every day. So the store has 4 salesmen, 2 tailors and 1 designer. All of them work hard each day to get the store going. So how does the denim store owner run his business? Well, it's quite simple. He buys basic denims, gets them designed and stitched, and sells them. The business was running well. Customers liked the denims, it suited their pockets, and they had a cordial relation with the owner. Now, since it has been a couple of months, the denim store owner wanted to keep track of money earned and money spent. He wanted to know whether his business was doing well or not. How much money was he making so that he knows whether he'll make money in the future and how much. He further wanted to know what was his best-selling denim. Why? To see whether it was priced well or not. He was keen on knowing how much he was spending to know whether he was overspending or not. He further wanted to know how much he has borrowed or lent to customers so that he pays money borrowed on time and sends reminders for money lent. So he started noting down everything that had happened in his business which either resulted in spending money or earning money. He noted the money paid on buying basic denims, getting them designed and stitched, and money received on selling denims. He had hired 7 employees and he was paying them a regular salary. So he noted that as well. Other than this, he noted the telephone charges, electricity charges, and so on. So he noted everything that either resulted in earning money or spending money. While he was doing that, one of his friends who lent him money called him up. He wanted to know how much money was he making. He basically wanted to make sure whether he'll get his money back or not. Denim store owner agreed and sent across the details to him. As soon as he hung up, one of the salesmen came to talk to him. Since it was a new business, the salesman was a little skeptical if the denim store was making enough money. So he asked the owner, "Can you tell me how's the business doing?" The owner figured that he's a little worried whether the store is making enough to pay him salaries. So he gave him a word of confidence and sent him the details. A couple of days later, a customer who requested to pay later came to make the payment. He asked the owner, I think I owe you 2,000 rupees and I've come to pay you that. Can you check in your records how much I owe you? So the denim store owner was like, let me check. He checked his notes and found out that the customer had to pay 2,000 only. So the customer paid him the money and left the store. The denim store owner was like, how many people are going to ask for these records or notes? 3 have asked already. Anyway, moving ahead. So this one day, he got a letter from the government asking for his records. He was like, why would government want my records now? As he read ahead, the government wanted to charge tax from him for the money he's made so far. His heart skipped a beat, but he recovered. He arranged all the notes and records and sent them across because he didn't want to upset the government. After recording all the data and sending to whoever wanted it, the owner got his focus back to selling denims. Now, if you pause and think back, what was the denim store owner doing all this while? Well, he was keeping track of money earned and spent and sending the details to interested people. Tell me, is there a name for this activity? Yes, there is, and you know it. The name is accounting. Just like you used accounting to keep track of money received and money spent, the denim store owner did the same. Now let's again evaluate the definition of accounting with this example. The first part states that it is a process of identifying, measuring, recording, and communicating. Denim store owner, while making notes or records, identified money earned and spent. He measured it, he noted or recorded it, and finally communicated it. Who did he communicate it to? Well, he communicated it to himself, to his lender friend, to that salesman, the customer who asked to pay later, and the government. Moving to the second part. The second part mentions the required information of economic events. Let's break this further into 2 parts: economic events and required information. Talking about economic events, what would be economic events for him? Well, buying the denim material, getting them stitched, designed, selling them, paying electricity, telephone, salaries, and so on. It'll cover all the events which can be expressed in terms of money. That is, which either lead to earning money or spending money. Now, if you recall, we discussed that the denim store sells good quality denims and they're very well priced. We further discussed that the denim store owner is a humble man. He talks to his customers politely and even lets them pay later. Did the denim store owner record these as well? No, he didn't. But why did he not record them? Because they can't be assigned any values. All these instances which can't be expressed in money are called non-economic events. The events may affect the economic events in a store, but they are not economic events per se. Moving to required information now. When you went for the trip, your dad wanted to know how you spent 2,000 rupees. Well, that was the required information. Now, what is the required information for the denim store? As we discussed, he would want to know whether the store was doing well or not, how much money has he gained in total, which is his best-selling denim, how much is he spending on salaries, and what is the amount he owes and he's owed. Well, accounting has the ability to answer all such questions. Now tell me, what decisions could he make with such information? Like your dad decided how responsible you were in spending money and whether he should let you go on trips in future, the denim store owner could make these decisions. He could probably reduce expenses if they were getting too high. He could provide discounts on low-selling denims. He could expand or reduce salesmen depending on the number of people who visit the store. Well, this will ensure whether resources were utilized properly. He could speed up the payment to people who he owes, and he could send reminders to people who he had lent money to. He could predict how much money will he make in future by looking at current and past earnings. Now you see, the denim store could take so many decisions based on the accounting information. So you can say that it was a report card for the store. Back to the definition now. The third and the final part talks about interested users. In the earlier example we discussed, your dad was the only interested user. But what about the denim store? Well, the denim store has a lot of interested users. Talking about the first category, employees. Why employees? Remember the salesman went to the owner to know if the store was making enough money? Well, he wanted to know whether the store was making enough to pay him a regular salary. The next category is lenders. If you recall, the owner's friend called him up to check on how much money was he making. He wanted to know if he'll be able to repay his friend. So if the owner was making enough money but not repaying, his friend would be annoyed, which is totally understandable. Moving to the next category. The next category is people who he has lent money to. Well, who are these people and why would they be interested? Remember, a customer who requested to pay later came to him to pay 2,000 rupees, and the first thing owner did was check his notes or records to see whether he needed to pay 2,000 or any other amount. The customer was interested in knowing whether the amount he thought he owed is correct as per the denim store's record as well. What if he thought he owed the denim store owner 2,000 rupees and the denim store owner shows 3,000 in his records? There will be an absolute mismatch. Moving ahead. Well, who else can be the interested user? How can we miss the big fish? Which is this big fish? Well, the government. Remember, the owner got a letter from the government to disclose his earnings? Why did government care? Why did government want to see denim store records? Well, income tax authorities within the government would be interested in knowing how much to tax the denim store. Tax, after all, is the major revenue source of the government. Also, there are a few ministries within the government who are interested in knowing whether small stores like denim stores and other big organizations are spending enough on social activities. Well, what social activities? Water conservation, tree plantation, cleanliness drives, and so on. The respective government departments track these to ensure that the organizations do their bit to contribute back to the society. So to recap, let's discuss how did the accounting records help the denim store owner. He was able to make decisions such as what discounts to give on the low-selling denims. He could foresee his earnings in the coming months. He was able to decide whether his existing salesmen were enough for the customers visiting him. So he got to know whether he was utilizing his resources well. Accounting records helped in knowing whether the business was doing well or not. It turned out to be a report card for him. Also, he got to know whether he was spending enough for the society so that the government doesn't catch hold of him. Phew! The kind of information accounting gives reminds me of those English movies wherein an FBI agent would type the name of the person on his supercomputer and it would give a zillion results. Accounting information is certainly enriching. But have you wondered what would happen if accounting records give wrong results, or redundant information, or ambiguous information? Let's take these three scenarios. The first scenario is wrong information. Imagine if the accounting records of the denim store owner were flawed. What would happen? Well, instead of buying more of the hot-selling denims, he could be filling his stores with the low-selling denim. Or he could give discounts on the best-selling denim and increase the price of a low-selling denim. Or he could hire more salesmen when he actually had to reduce them. Imagine what a disaster it could lead to. Now talking about scenario 2, which is redundant information. Now tell me, if the denim store owner would like to know how much he owes and how much he's owed, and he looks at a long list of people who borrowed money from and who he borrowed money from, do you think it's relevant information? Would he care if person A owes him or person B owes him as long as both of them owe him? No, he wouldn't care. The store owner is a busy man. He doesn't have time to waste on unnecessary information. Moving to scenario 3, ambiguous information. Do you remember watching English movies with a stylish British accent which was so hard to understand? Or you read an article on web with overly enthusiastic vocabulary that almost seems incomprehensible to you? Now imagine if the denim store owner meets a friend and his friend asks him how his business is doing, and the owner is like, see, our equity is doing well, but our asset position is worrisome and our inventory days are exceeding the thresholds. And his friend is clueless and lost in vocabulary. He's like, hey scientist, can you tell me in simple words? He then mentioned he has gained enough in these months, but people who have borrowed money aren't paying on time. And we are buying more denim than we can actually sell. So you see, the latter is understandable and makes more sense. The 3 scenarios we discussed highlight the 3 most important qualitative features of accounting. The accounting records should be reliable, they should be relevant, and they should be understandable. Let's have a quick recap of what you've learned about accounting. Well, accounting helps in maintaining records, calculating gains and losses, knowing amount borrowed or lent, and making decisions with such information.